All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Emma, and today I'll be presenting my tips on how to manage your time as an engineering student at UBC. I just want to give a quick introduction to myself. Like Catherine mentioned, I'm going to my fourth year. I'm in mechanical engineering in the mechatronics stream. So I've got a pretty good idea of what it's like to have 6+ courses, co-op applications, extracurriculars, all that stuff going on at the same time. I've been in the top 10% of AppSci students for the past 2 years, and I've also received a few academic scholarships, so hopefully my advice can help you meet your academic goals. So I'm not sure how many of you are in first year, but I think even though this advice mostly pertains to first year, I think it applies to upper years as well. I'm sure you're finding university to be a lot tougher than high school, or at least a lot more work. And I think the biggest difference between students who are able to meet their academic goals and those who struggled a little bit more was that they were able to stay on top of everything and then also study effectively. So those are the main two things I'm going to be talking about in my presentation. So when I say staying on top of everything, the keystone to that is to attend lectures. I think it's really important to go to class, to like be actively listening, asking questions, taking notes, because everything just builds on top of what's come before it. So if you miss a lecture, I would really prioritize covering that material before the next one, just so that you don't fall too far behind. In terms of managing work, when I was in first year, I kind of categorized the tasks into three distinct different groups. I had the weekly homework sets, I had labs and projects, which is more like Chem 154, and then AppSci, and then also the midterm exams. And I had, I think, one every week for like 8 weeks, and I feel like it's pretty similar nowadays. And my main strategy was I wanted to prioritize studying for those exams because they were worth the most, but I felt like I had to tackle all my deliverables in order to be able to do that. So I wanted to start and finish those early, and I'll get on to talking about that. So when I say starting early, I mean working on your homework sets as you learn the material. It can be pretty tempting to want to leave it all until you feel like you've covered all the material, but I find there's actually a few advantages to working on it as you go. Um, Firstly, it helps to kind of spread out the stress. And then secondly, as you work on the problems, the material should be more fresh in your brain if you just learned it recently. So you should be able to work more efficiently as well. So there's a couple benefits, I think, to working on it as you go. And then also on the weekends, I wasn't on a design team in first year, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But I'd really try and use my time on the weekends to get through a lot of the pre-class work. So it's like screencasts, textbook readings, and then also just continuing to work on homework. And I found that that was quite helpful because during the week, then I could prioritize studying for whichever midterm I had that week. In terms of actually doing the homework, if I was getting stuck on a problem or if I hadn't learned the material yet, I would just move on. Like sometimes it's not worth it to spend an hour or 2 hours by yourself thinking about a problem when you could go ask for help at office hours or you could ask a friend for some help. So knowing when to move on, like not giving up right away, but knowing when to move on is quite important. And also knowing your working hours. I'm a morning person, so I would actually study before class a lot of the time, and then I would study after class until like 7 p.m. I think. I would start making a lot of mistakes that I wouldn't usually make, and at that point I kind of knew that it wouldn't be productive to keep studying. So I think knowing your working hours is really important. Like if you're a night owl, making sure you have nights free to like do your work, just planning around when you know you can be most productive. Now I'm going to talk a little bit more about tools that you can use to stay organized. I'm sure by now a lot of you have learned that Workday is not very good at showing you your schedule. So I think making your own calendar, whether that be in Google Calendar or like on Apple, something like that to just show you when you're free, that's really important. And I would also include like appointments and meetings, interviews, stuff like that, just so that if someone calls you and needs to set up a meeting time with you, like you have a really easy way of seeing what time works for you. So I think that's a really important tool. And then here is a Notion page that I made for first year. Yeah, and I tried using Notion. I thought that would be a really cool tool because you can really personalize it and like really sort things with lots of detail. But that ended up being really hard to maintain. And I kind of gave up on it after 2 or 3 weeks. So for some people that might work really well, but I'll show you what actually works for me. Um, okay, what I actually do use is the Canvas assignments tab. It really does the work for you, like sorting things by due date and by class. And then it's so I make sure I'm getting rid of those other notifications so that this number I see on the app actually corresponds to the assignments I have due. That way I know there's things I need to get done as long as I have notifications. I also keep a separate to-do list for stuff that's a bit farther in the future because I think Canvas only shows you a week in advance. So I like to get started on things, a week more than a week in advance. So I'll put those into this to-do list. And I found this just to-do list widget in the App Store. So I've been using that. Just very simple, but I put in all my assignments and appointments and other stuff that's going on. And then also, there's a lot of group work activities in engineering. So to help manage that, when I've done my part of things, I'll check off the item. And then once it's actually been submitted and completed, I'll remove it from the list entirely. So that's just a good way of managing group work activities. Okay, I mentioned before that I wasn't on any design teams. I was worried about the course load in first year, and I also didn't like the idea of Saturday meetings, so I chose not to join a design team in first year. But I knew that I wanted to have something on my resume, something to help me stand out from other students, hopefully a technical project. So what I ended up doing was joining UBC Game Development Club, which actually was a really great experience. I was on there as an artist and a programmer. I got to meet students from other disciplines and like work on a project all year long. And I have got to talk about that in interviews before as well. So it was definitely lower commitment than a design team. It was a really great experience. I learned a lot. So I definitely recommend joining a club of some sort if you're not on a design team. And then another thing I think is good to participate in is volunteering. I really enjoy like all the experiences I've had volunteering within engineering. And the really great thing about it is that you can make it fit your schedule. Like it's not every week I have to go to this meeting. It's more when am I available? When can I help out? So it's a lot less stressful that way. It also opens up doors to lots of different opportunities. Like I was asked to give this presentation because of my role volunteering through Imagine Day. So you can really build your network, I think, through volunteering. Okay, I do want to talk a little bit about my study tips, even though it's not the main point of the presentation. But my main strategy is to do practice problems and redo practice problems, basically until they become muscle memory. And where do I source these problems from? I really like practice exams from profs. If you're lucky, you'll get like one or two practice exams, and I'll do those multiple times just so that I think in general, past exams are quite similar to ones that you'll see when you're in the course. So I think those are the best resource. But another good option is looking at exams from similar courses from other universities like SFU, U of T. I think in engineering, generally the curriculum is pretty similar. Like we're all learning the same math in first year, so it doesn't quite matter where the exam is coming from. So this can be another good source, especially if you're like looking for an answer key. Also, past tutorials and homework are good options. Textbooks, if you can find the textbook that your prof uses to like get homework problems or get exam problems, that can be a really good resource. And then also in terms of final exams, using UBC Wiki, there's one for math, and they have final exams for math 100, 101, and 152. And those were basically how I studied for my finals because they've got a bunch of different problems with solutions and hints and stuff like that. So that's a really good resource. And then also knowing what study habits work for you. If you like to study on your own, that's great. If you have a little bit of trouble focusing, finding study buddies that will help you stay on task can be a really good source of inspiration and I guess of building good habits. So yeah, creating a good environment for you to be productive is important. And then lastly, a lot of my presentation was focused on academic goals, but I do want to point out that there's many different ways to be successful in engineering. I think in first year, your GPA is particularly critical, but even if you don't, say, get into your first choice program this time around, it's not going to be the end of the world. I'll give you an example. There's an upper year student that I met in first year. She's in her fifth or sixth year, and she'd been originally aiming to get into Eng Phys, but she didn't make it the first time around, and she got into iGen instead. So she did 1 year of iGen and worked really hard to improve her marks. She actually really enjoyed the program and almost considered staying, but she ended up submitting a transfer and it went through. So she finished engineering physics, I think just last year. She graduated, loved the program, and now she's working at Microsoft as a project manager. So if at first things don't go your way, it's really not indicative of how, your career is going to go. So don't be discouraged if things don't go your way at first.